Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Andrew Laidley. Caribbean Cement Company says yesterday's fire in a section of its administrative office did not affect production and will not affect its ability to supply cement to the trade and its customers. Carib Cement says customers' trucks continue to be loaded and the incident has not disrupted supply in any way. The fire, which started yesterday evening, was initially extinguished by the fire department. However, it reignited in the same area after midnight, which saw firefighters continuing their battle against the blaze into this morning. Meanwhile, Carib Cement is reporting that no one was injured in the incident, only material was damaged. The company says the fire department has started investigations into the cause of the fire. Carib Cement says staff members who normally operate in the affected area have been reassigned to other areas across the plant. The company says it has already begun plans to reconstruct the affected area. Figures from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin show that inflation continues to trend down. The numbers are contained in the December Consumer Price Index (CPI) figures. Nordia Francis Williams has the breakdown.
The movement in the All Jamaica All Divisions Consumer Price Index CPI for December 2016 was 0.3%, bringing the calendar year inflation rate for 2016 to 1.7%. This was 2 percentage points below the 3.7% recorded for the calendar year 2015. The division recording the highest movement for the month under review was housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels, which increased to 0.8% due primarily to increased electricity, water, and sewage rates for the month. Meanwhile, the highest weighted division was food and non-alcoholic beverages, which moved up 0.4%. This was mainly due to the class, vegetables and starchy foods, increasing by 0.8%. The figures show that the Transport Division recorded the lowest movement, which was the only division to register a decline, moving down by 0.5%. Statin notes this was as a result of lower fuel prices on the local market. In the meantime, the fiscal year-to-date movement was 3.1% as at December 2016. The other divisions that recorded increases in the All Jamaica All Divisions Index were alcoholic beverages and tobacco, 0.1%, clothing and footwear, 0.1%, furnishings, household equipment, and routine maintenance, 0.1%, health, 0.4%, restaurants and accommodation services 0.1%, and miscellaneous goods and services 0.4%. The divisions recreation and culture, education and communication each recorded negligible movement in their index. The regional index showed upward movements for all three regions: Greater Kingston Metropolitan Area up by 0.4%, other urban areas up by 0.3%, and rural areas up by 0.2%. For BATV News, I'm Nordia Francis Williams.
Chairman of JAMPRO, Senator Don Webby, says the agency is pushing for simpler, more transparent and cheaper avenues for both the importation and exportation of products to boost investment. He says this includes the streamlining of import and export processes that could see the removal of certain licenses and permits that are currently redundant. He notes that JAMPRO is currently working very closely with the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, to have funding approved for a number of reforms geared towards streamlining trade facilitation processes. Senator Webby was speaking at the press launch of the Jamaica International Exhibition JIE Trade Show at the Montego Bay Convention Center in Rose Hall, St. James recently. He added that for several years, JAMPRO has managed the buyer recruitment function of the biannual Jamaica Manufacturers Association, JMA, Jamaica Exporters Association, JEA Expo, securing some 473 buyers last year alone to attend that event. Of these 473 buyers, 177 were international buyers from 40 countries, including Malaysia and Switzerland. Director of Tourism Paul Pennycook is pitching Kingston as a tourist destination which offers many attractions. The tourism director's pitch comes on the heels of the capital city being named by the New York Times as one of 52 places across the world to visit in 2017. Here's more. Kingston is traditionally known for its hustle and bustle, but all that's beginning to change as the government explores new ways to market the city as a prime tourist destination.
Kingston, Jamaica was number 24 on the list. So the way we look at it is that we are in the top 25 places to visit in 2017. Now, what does that mean for Kingston? It means a heck of a lot. Reason being, there's so much to do in Kingston, and there's so much going on in Kingston that it's really great to see the New York Times, which has millions of readers, designate Kingston as such.
Mr. Pennycook says the New York Times acknowledgement is a result of trips the government has taken to sensitize overseas markets about the brand.
We've been doing a lot of work primarily by press trips, different categories of press. We've had culinary press trips, we've had heritage press trips, writers coming to Kingston, like we had international press when we had the senior trials, for example. And we intend to continue that with things like champs and all of that.
He says the visitor targets for this year are ambitious but not impossible, pointing out that tourism will continue to play its part in growing the Jamaican economy.
We have set ourselves some ambitious targets. We have set ourselves some targets for 2017 calendar year of increasing stopover arrivals some 5% or so. And to do that, by the way, it means that we have to get in excess of 100,000 new visitors, because of course we're over 2 million visitors a year now, so that in itself tells you that we are undertaking an ambitious task, because yes, we are also very much aware of the fact that tourism is a central piece of the economy and is expected to help to drive the economy.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Lately. Jamaica is set to host a major global tourism conference this year. Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett has signed an agreement in Spain, which will see a conference commemorating the 2017 United Nations World Tourism Organization, UNWTO's International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development in St. James. The event, which is a collaborative effort between the Government of Jamaica, international development firm Chemonics International and the UNWTO, is scheduled for November 27 to 29 at the Montego Bay Convention Center. Speaking during the signing ceremony, Minister Bartlett said he was honored to have participated on behalf of the Prime Minister of Jamaica to concretize arrangements to host such a prestigious event on the island. Meanwhile, Secretary General of the UNWTO said the conference will kickstart discussions to create on-the-ground activities to develop tourism across the globe from public-private partnerships. This is the first time that the UNWTO will stage a world conference on tourism in the Caribbean or the Americas. And still to come, stock analysts say an unstable dollar is a threat to the local market. The details when we return. Welcome back. JMMB's senior trader Greg Lindo and the chief investment strategist at JN Fund Managers Ramon Small Ferguson say they are concerned about the stability of the Jamaican dollar despite improvements in the economy. They were both guests on the last episode of BATV's On Point. Anthony Morgan reports.
Senior trader at JMMB Greg Linda says the Jamaican dollar is expected to devalue in the future, despite efforts now to grow the foreign exchange market.
That's a question that I get frequently. Investors are always concerned about the rate of devaluation, especially when making investments in local currency. I mean, we've observed maybe an average depreciation rate of maybe 5 to 6% per year. Yeah. We expect devaluation to continue, however, possibly at a slower pace. We've recently seen revaluation.
However, he says the recent revaluation of the dollar will benefit investors.
Maybe over a longer space of time, persons may still have a preference for US dollars, but with the slowing of the rate of depreciation, as well as investment yields in US dollars are now pretty low, persons are more willing to look at equities, as an alternative investment.
Meanwhile, Chief Investment Strategist at JN Fund Managers Ramon Small Ferguson says if the Jamaican dollar continues to lose value, it will affect how investors approach investments in 2017.
I mean, for me, I think for 2017, I think some of the financials may be challenged, and that is a result of some of the things that Greg has mentioned. Greg has mentioned the expectation that we may see a slowdown in the appreciation of the Jamaican dollar, which is an area that really pushed profitability in the financial sector in 2016. Another area where we're seeing it's positive for most of the market, but negative specifically for financials is the fact that interest rates, both locally and internationally, are pretty low. So that low interest rate environment poses challenges, particularly for financials that make money.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Meanwhile, General Manager of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, Marlene Street Forrest, says a part of the company's success must be attributed to the good governance. She was also a guest on BATV's last episode of On Point. Here's more.
Mrs. Street Forrest says changes to the JSE structure some 80 years ago was geared towards good governance.
Well, as you know, we had changed our structure in 2008. And the Jamaica Stock Exchange demutualized. And that in itself, for the company itself, was to promote good governance. And over the years, we have put in place various programs to encourage good governance of companies that are listed.
She says companies should ensure that they are governed by best practices, as this will drive investments.
Persons do not want to invest if there is no confidence, if there is no transparency. But we have seen, even with our best practices awards, we just had one recently, where when we look back at what companies are doing, we have seen that they have increased and improved on their governance structure.
Meanwhile, the general manager says along with the soft launch of its corporate governance index, which will safeguard how companies are operating, there is also a division within the JSE that monitors its listed companies and brokers.
We have the Regulatory and Market Oversight Division, and that division monitors both listed companies and also the brokers. So every month the brokers must send in a report to us, but on a daily basis, based on our trading platform and our surveillance mechanism, we are able to see the activities of the brokers. And also, by virtue of that, we are able to call them out if there is something to question.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
The Ministry of Transport and Mining says the Island Traffic Authority is now looking into the challenges experienced during the piloting of the new vehicle management system. The system was implemented at the Swallowfield Examination Depot last Thursday. The ministry says while there were lengthy delays last Thursday, this is no longer the case as the pains associated with the system are being corrected. Systems Development Manager in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Edson Williams, says steps have been taken to improve the service delivery, which will run parallel to the manual system until the computerized one is able to function by itself. Mr. Williams says 3 computerized stations are up and running at the depot, with an additional one to be added in coming days. Meanwhile, Director of the Island Traffic Authority, Ludlow Powell, says the system was affected by the usual kinks resulting from the implementation of any new system, but those have now been eliminated as the staff becomes more familiar with the technology. The new vehicle management system was launched at a press briefing at the Ministry of Transport and Mining on Wednesday, January 11. The system was designed to capture all motor vehicle and driver's license information electronically and replace a process that is currently being done manually at examination depots island-wide. The Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees UCASE says over 150 security officers met at its headquarters over the weekend, demanding that the union urgently arrange a meeting with the government and the opposition. They say the meeting is to outline serious social and economic concerns facing the 20,000 guards employed to over 30 security companies across the island. The union says top of the list of concerns is the issue of sexual harassment. It says other issues include the establishment of a joint industry council of the security guard industry JIC, the continuous payment for uniforms, and the recently introduced medical insurance by the Ministry of National Security. The union says some security guards have complained that they have spent over $200,000 paying for uniforms that they have to return to their employees by the end of their employment. The union says the workers say they also do not have enough money to pay the insurance, considering that they are minimum wage earners. UK says the guards have also requested that a press conference be held at the earliest possible time to inform the public of the many concerns and issues affecting the island's largest security force. And stay with us. Regional and international stories are next. Welcome back. It's time now for regional and international news. Cuban company Cuba Export has signed a landmark agreement to sell vegetable charcoal to U.S. firm Cubana Trading. This marks the first time in more than half a century that a Cuban-made product will be exported from Cuba and sold in the United States. The first delivery of 40 tons is scheduled for tomorrow, January 18. Chairman of Reneo Consulting LLC, Cubana's parent company, Scott Gilbert, says it is a momentous occasion and the Marabu charcoal is widely viewed as the best artisanal charcoal in the world. The chairman adds that this marks the beginning of a new era of trade between the United States and Cuba. He says the Maruba plant is an invasive weed that clogs otherwise fertile organic fields in Cuba, but can now be used to produce the artisanal charcoal, thereby clearing the fields and making them available for agricultural growth. The U.S. trade embargo on Cuba imposed in 1958 remains in place, but outgoing U.S. President Barack Obama began thawing relations in 2015, easing restrictions on imports of goods and services from private Cuban entrepreneurs. Brazilian President Michel Temer says unemployment is his top concern this year as the country emerges from its worst recession on record. Nathan Frandino reports.
Brazilian President Michel Temer says the end of a two-year recession is nearing. In an interview with Reuters, Temer says he sees that end coming in the second half this year.
We think that from the second semester onwards, or halfway through the second semester, unemployment will begin to reduce and growth will come once and for all.
That growth is his focus. 8 months after taking over from impeached leftist Dilma Rousseff, Temer has pushed through measures to rein in public spending and provide credit to small and medium-sized companies. Inflation has slowed significantly, but economic activity has yet to pick up. Corruption allegations against politicians, including Temer and his allies, have shaken investor confidence. Still, Temer says job creation for the country's 12 million unemployed, and not the graph probe, is his top worry.
Colocar o país nos trilhos. Eu tenho dito isso.
Our concern is put the country back on track. I say that often because we still have 2 years to do that. So if Brazil is back on track in 2 years, on track economically, ethically, and morally, then the next government will find the country in order and be able to make it grow progressively more.
Para fazê-lo crescer cada vez mais.
It's a track that Temer is confident he could put the country on before the next presidential election in 2018.
The Hyundai Motor Group says it plans to lift U.S. investments by 50% in the next 5 years to $3.1 billion and may build a new U.S. plant. That makes it the latest in a line of automakers announcing new spending after President-elect Donald Trump's threat to tax imports. More in this Reuters report.
A bold step for Hyundai at a make-or-break time for its business in America. The South Korean car maker on Tuesday announcing plans to boost U.S. investment by 50%, or more than $3 billion. The move brings Hyundai into the ranks alongside Toyota, Ford, and Fiat Chrysler, all of which have announced plans to ratchet up U.S. investment in the past month. And that's no coincidence. As Reuters' Hyunju Jin reports, for the auto world, it's all eyes on Inauguration Day.
Hyundai's announcement is a preemptive strike against Trump's tweets. Trump tweeted recently slamming not only U.S. automakers but foreign automakers for making cars in Mexico and importing them to the United States. And Trump threatened to slap a big tax on imported cars from Mexico. So many analysts expected Hyundai Motor may be the next target of criticism from Trump.
Hyundai says it plans to plow cash into its U.S. factories over the next 5 years, and they may even build another one. It's also touting R&D projects from self-driving cars to artificial intelligence. The head of the company tells Reuters it's not all to please the president-elect, but that couldn't hurt.
Hyundai Motor President Jang Jin-heng denied that the investment decision was driven by Trump's pressure to build cars in the United States instead of Mexico. But Hyundai hopes car demand would rise under the Trump administration, which pledged to create more jobs and boost.
Hyundai Group also owns Kia, which runs a factory in Georgia, but it also recently kicked off production at its first plant in Mexico and plans to expand it. Hyundai's president says he's been agonizing over what to do now at that facility, now that a tax or a tweet could make it a very costly decision.
With Chinese New Year festivities officially starting on Saturday, retailers have launched a fierce advertising campaign to lure customers. But young Chinese consumers are increasingly turning their backs on big brands. Al Jazeera's Sarah Clark reports from Hong Kong.
The street decorations are up and the big retailers are joining in on the Chinese New Year celebrations. 2017 is the year of the rooster. Everything from special edition handbags, key rings, even sneakers have been rolled out to cash in on the demand for holiday gifts.
Christmas and Chinese New Year have always traditionally been the bigger portion. I think of the year is the peak season, and I think the sentiment this year is quite strong with the Chinese New Year pretty close to Christmas.
Chinese consumers are one of the most crucial forces of global luxury consumption, and traditionally they spend big during the holiday period. Tastes of some Chinese consumers are changing. Has become increasingly critical of the surge of zodiac-themed designs.
The design by those international fashion houses has the Chinese-style element, only without capturing the essence and spirit of Chinese clothing.
Janko Lam is a fashion designer in Hong Kong. Once employed by Valentino, she now has her own line, which she believes embraces Chinese heritage.
As a designer, we need our identity and our own culture as the starting point. Otherwise, we are simply following the pace of others.
Her opinion is mirrored by the so-called millennial generation in China, who are seeking more representations of Chinese culture.
I think people not really focus on this kind of stuff now because it's kind of old school.
Chinese New Year doesn't mean that you need to buy some new thing, but you need to enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy what you do with your family instead of what you have wear on your body.
This group in Hong Kong is encouraging consumers to boycott new items and buy second-hand. They've set up their own markets to swap and trade items in the lead-up to Chinese New Year.
There's a fast fashion disaster, I think. So we want to promote second-hand culture. So we want people to come and pick up the stuff first, think about it, and maybe not buy new stuff for Chinese New Year.
It's been a difficult couple of years for the luxury fashion brands, with 21 consecutive months of falling retail sales. Some stores have even been forced to close their doors in China. So all will be hoping for a turnaround in 2017, and Chinese New Year will be the first real test. Sarah Clark, Al Jazeera, Hong Kong.
Talking Stocks is after the break. Welcome back. It's time now for Talking Stocks. 45 stocks traded today, of which 21 advanced, 18 declined, and 6 traded firm. The main JSE index declined by 105 points to close at over 195,000 points. The junior index advanced by 4 points to close at more than 2,000 points. Almost 5 million units traded, valued at more than $35 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the US dollar market, over 19,000 units traded, valued at over $4,000 US. Cable and wireless with over 1 million units changing hands accounted for 32% of the market volume. 138 Student Living was second with over 877,000 units trading. Radio Jamaica accounted for over 337,000 units, amounting to 6% of the market volume crossing the floor. Cable and wireless was the top advancer, up 24 cents to close at $1.36, followed by Jetcon Corporation up $1.59 to close at $9.74, and the Jamaican Teas up 45 cents to close at $5.75. The main decliners were AMG Packaging and Paper Company, down $4.52 to close at $28.32, followed by Portland JSX losing 78 cents to close at $10.22, and Caribbean Cement Company down $2.08 to close at $30.94. And that's all the news we have for this evening, but before we go, a recap of our top story. Carib Cement is assuring customers that yesterday's fire at the administrative offices on the plant has not affected production or delivery. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Andrew Laidley. Pleasant viewing.